The storm had been raging for hours, waves crashing endlessly against the jagged cliffs. From afar, the lighthouse looked like a broken tooth jutting out of the earth's, forgotten and yet somehow still alive. I had been sent here to guard it, though no one had explained why a place that no longer guided ships needed guarding at all. The first night, I discovered the book. It was resting on the keeper's desk, its leather cover warped with age, its pages filled with rules written in shaky handwriting. Never let the lantern go out. Do not answer if you hear a knock after midnight. If you see shadows moving against the light, look away. The words unsettled me, but I dismissed them as the ramblings of a man who had spent too much time in isolation. Still, as the wind howled and the darkness pressed against the tower walls, I couldn't shake the feeling that these rules weren't just warnings. They were instructions for survival. The lighthouse groaned with every gust of wind, its iron frame rattling like an old skeleton, refusing to fall apart. I lit the lantern in the watchroom, its flame flickering uncertainly, and sat by the desk where the rules still lay open. Midnight approached. At first, it was only the sound of the storm outside, but then 3 deliberate knocks echoed through the tower door below. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. No one was supposed to be here. I remembered the second rule: do not answer if you hear a knock after midnight. The knocks came again, harder this time, shaking the wooden frame. My hand twitched toward the door, but something deep inside warned me not to move. Instead, I clutched the lantern tighter, its glow trembling with my fear. That was when I noticed the shadows on the far wall, shadows that did not belong to me. They shifted, stretched, and crawled upward, as if trying to climb into the light itself. The book had been right. The rules weren't madness. They were the only reason I was still breathing. The storm outside roared louder, but inside the lighthouse, it was the silence between the knocks that terrified me most. I kept my eyes locked on the lantern, its trembling flame my only lifeline. Then, suddenly, the knocking stopped. For a moment, I thought it was over until I heard the slow, deliberate sound of something dragging itself across the wet stones outside. It circled the tower, scraping against the walls, as though searching for a way in. I dared to glance toward the door, and that's when I saw it. A thin black line seeping through the crack at the threshold. Like liquid shadow, it writhed and pulsed, spreading across the floor toward me. My first instinct was to run, but the rules echoed in my mind. If you see shadows moving against the light, look away. So I forced myself to stare at the lantern instead. Gripping its handle so hard, my knuckles ached. The darkness hissed as the light flared, retreating for just a second before pressing forward again. Whatever it was, it wanted inside, and it would not stop until the flame died. By dawn, the storm had weakened, but I hadn't slept a single moment. The lantern's flame burned low, almost gone, yet somehow it had held the shadows back through the night. My hands shook as I reached for the book again. The pages smelled of salt and mold, but the words gripped me tighter than fear itself. I turned to a section I hadn't seen before, written in darker ink, the handwriting more desperate. If the door opens, do not look at what enters. Light will not protect you then. My stomach twisted. What kind of place was this? Why had I been sent here? The longer I stayed, the more the rules felt less like guidance and more like prophecy. I lifted my eyes from the book and froze. The wooden floor near the door was still wet, as if something had been standing there, dripping seawater long after the storm had ended. And then I noticed footprints black and smudged, leading up the staircase into the tower above me. Whatever had knocked last night was already inside. The spiral staircase loomed above me, each step marked by the black, dripping footprints that climbed into the shadows. My lantern flickered, throwing light up the iron coils. But it wasn't enough to see where the trail ended. I swallowed hard, my throat dry despite the damp air. Something had come in during the night and it hadn't left. Slowly, I placed my foot on the first step. The iron was cold, slick with moisture, as though it had just been touched by something not entirely human. Every creak of the staircase echoed like a scream inside the hollow tower. The book's words clawed at the back of my mind. If the door opens, do not look at what enters. But how was I supposed to ignore the thing that had left these prints? Halfway up, the lantern shuddered in my grip, the flame nearly snuffing out. I froze. Above me, from somewhere in the darkness, came the unmistakable sound of breathing, slow, heavy, as if whatever waited in the tower had been expecting me all along. I froze on the staircase, the lantern shaking in my hands as the sound of that slow, ragged breathing filled the hollow tower. It was above me, hidden in the shadows, waiting. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, to run, but the rules in the book burned in my mind, rules I didn't fully understand, yet knew I couldn't ignore. I lifted the lantern higher, its glow stretching just far enough to catch the edge of the next footprint. The black stain shimmered like oil, still wet, as if the creature had only just passed. Then came a new sound, scraping, nails or claws dragging against the iron rail of the staircase above. The sound was deliberate, mocking, as though whatever was up there wanted me to know it was aware of me. My chest tightened. I forced myself to take another step upward, the lantern's flame sputtering with each movement. The breathing grew louder, closer, filling the air until it felt like it was inside my own lungs. And then, just as I reached the next turn of the stairs, the lantern's flame dipped low, nearly extinguished. In the dim light, I thought I saw it, two pale eyes staring down from the darkness, unblinking. The sight of those pale eyes froze me in place. They didn't blink, didn't move, just hovered in the dark like cold lanterns of their own. My grip tightened on the handle of my own lantern, the only fragile wall between me and whatever lurked above. The book's rules screamed in my head, but none of them said what to do if the thing was already watching. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the sound of the waves pounding the cliffs below. Then the eyes began to rise, slowly, as though the creature was standing taller, unfolding itself from the shadows. A low creak followed, the iron steps above bending under its weight. I staggered back one step, my heel slipping on the wet metal, but I didn't dare look away. The flame in my lantern danced violently, fighting to stay alive, as if it too sensed the darkness trying to consume it. And then, without warning, the breathing stopped. The tower fell silent. The eyes blinked, once vanished, and I was left staring into an empty, endless black. The silence was worse than the sound, because silence meant it could be anywhere now. My legs trembled as I clung to the staircase, the lantern flickering wildly in my grasp. The silence pressed in like a weight, every corner of the tower swallowed by shadow. I couldn't see the eyes anymore, but I could feel them lurking just beyond the reach of the flame. I forced myself upward, step by step, until I reached the landing that led to the lantern room. The air here was colder, damp with the stench of seawater and rust. I pushed the iron door open, its hinges groaning like a dying animal. Inside, The great glass of the lighthouse stood cracked, its frame warped with age. The main lantern, once the heart of the tower, was dead. Its machinery lay broken, coated in dust and salt. My small hand lantern was the only source of light now, and it was weakening. As I stepped closer to inspect the damage, I noticed something etched into the glass of the lighthouse lens. At first, it looked like scratches, but then I read the words carved deep into the surface: "Do not let the light die." My stomach dropped. The rules weren't just in the book. They were written into the very bones of this place. And as if to remind me of the cost of disobedience, the flame in my lantern guttered, once more leaving the room in a breathless, suffocating dark.